Welcome to the Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flatwood Works.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast talks about everything from Jesus to joinery. So, Tom, does a bear crap in the woods?
Yes, it does. I saw it this weekend.
It craps in my front yard and my dog rolls in it. So, yesterday, you expect that one, did you?
No, I did not.
Yesterday, we're outside playing and just with the kids, and Eli and I are playing catch, and my German Shepherd's over by the apple tree, and she's sniffing around something, but she's sniffing at it really like interested, like she's doing circles around this and sniffing it. What's she doing? Next thing you know, she dives her head into it and starts rolling. I'm like, what in the world? So go over there, and she's rolling and crap. And I'm like, what in the world is this? And so she gets up, I get her to go away, and I take her over and I hose her off, and I go back over there, and there's like lots of berries and seeds and stuff in it, and it's big. Like it's not like small, it's not like massive, but it's a decent amount. I'm like, that's weird. So I take a picture of it and I send it to some of my buddies that are big into hunting and stuff. Everybody says, "Oh, that's bear scat."
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, great. Now we have surveillance around our house, cameras, but where it's at is too far away for the night vision infrared to reach. And so if a bear did come from anywhere, I wouldn't be able to see it because of, where it's at. But funny enough, before church yesterday, my buddy's on his way into church, and he texted me and he said, "Dude, I just saw a bear on 98, which is not far from us. You have to come that way to come out to the church." And so, they say bears have like a 10-mile radius, even more. And there's a lot of bear around here. I mean, we're in the Appalachian Mountains, we're up here in the hills of Pennsylvania. So, just kind of cool. Since we've been here, we've heard coyotes. I've got a bobcat on my camera. We got deer everywhere. But we haven't seen bears. So this is kind of neat to see one. But, we've got black raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries, and then apple and pear trees on our property. And so, it's good eating for bears. They love berries. But I didn't know this, and I don't know if this is the same out in Colorado or maybe from, when you're in South Carolina. We have blackberries, and I'll have to send you the video of them. Not just a few, like probably a 20-foot section, and it's just on nothing but blackberries. Now, we don't like blackberries, but I was talking to somebody at work, and they said that they're actually like hard to come by, and that people pay a lot of money for a quart of blackberries. And I tell you what, we got a couple 5-gallon buckets worth over there. There's just a ton of them. So we've picked about 4 or 5 quarts of black raspberries, which we really like. And then now we've got all these blackberries that are starting to turn. They'll probably be ready in the next couple of weeks. So we may package them up and, I don't know, sell them to people at work or something.
I'll be freezing them things up so my wife can make me a blackberry pie or something in the wintertime.
Well, my mother-in-law's going to come over and pick a bunch because she likes making, she calls it a mixed berry pie. So it'd be like blackberries, black raspberries, that kind of stuff.
Oh, dude. I'm telling you. Can't beat a homemade pie.
Yeah. My favorite, I'm a huge apple pie, and nobody makes apple pie better than my mother-in-law. I haven't had it. I've eaten apple pie all over the place. Nobody touches her apple pie. And so we had a pie. It was Pie Day, 3.14, right? A few months ago. And so we had Pie Day at work, and several people brought in pumpkin pies or apple pies. They need to stop making pie. Either I'm just so, blessed by having my mother-in-law, and, my standards are so high, or they just don't know how to make pie. But, a good apple pie with some vanilla ice cream right out the oven. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking my language.
That and pumpkin pie are my favorite. A good pumpkin pie. I'm not a huge pumpkin pie. I'm not a huge berry pie fan. So those are about the 2 pies that I'll really eat. But it's funny, and maybe I'm an outlier. Anybody listening, if you want to shoot us an email or a message on Instagram, tell me if you're the same way. I am not a sweet eater. Like, we got peanut butter cookies in there my wife made on Friday. I haven't eaten one. I just don't. And it's not that she makes fantastic, baked goods and stuff. I just don't eat sweets. They could be sitting there. There could be a whole pan of brownies sitting there. And now brownies, they are my weakness. I will have a couple brownies normally, but like cookies or cake, pie, I just won't eat it. I don't know. It's a weird thing. And I love it. But on a casual, like walking through the kitchen, you grab a cookie. I just don't. I don't know if I'm an outlier in that.
Yeah. I like sweets that aren't real sweet, if that makes sense. Like, to me, pumpkin pie, and my favorite is butternut squash pie. And apple pie also, they're not as sweet as like if somebody made like a chocolate pie or something like that. But things that are super sweet, they don't really appeal to me that much. The only thing I would probably say that is on the sweeter side that I'm addicted to is ice cream. I love ice cream. Like, I never, ever get tired of ice cream. But yeah, man.
I'll tell you what, when we have the Faith Talks Wood retreat next year, I will make it my donation to have, I just lost it.
Ice cream churn?
No, there's ice cream. There's a local company that makes ice cream. I just lost the name of them. Boy, now it's going to bother me. Liquid Gold? No, not Liquid Gold. Anywho, I will have their ice cream here because I haven't had ice cream better than theirs, like anywhere.
Fantastic.
And it's not like you go to like Cold Stone or something. No, this is like the ice cream, hands down, best ice cream you've ever had.
All right. I want that, and I want your mother-in-law's apple pie.
I can get a couple apple pies, I'm sure. But so before we get into the Bible talk, which Tom's got today, just want to say thank you to everybody over on Patreon. You guys are awesome. We've been seeing just people that enjoy the podcast and that want to support what we're doing here, and we really appreciate that. And if you want to get on board there, patreon.com/Faith Talks Wood. Right now, the main benefit is you get to kind of have insider information on like the retreat that we're going to be doing, and then you get early access to the podcast. So the podcast comes out on Wednesdays, and we post it on Sundays to our patron supporters. And so I really appreciate everybody over there that's listening and supporting us. And also give us a 5-star review on Apple. Goes a long way. Most of you guys are listening on Apple devices, so we appreciate that. And then pray for the podcast. We love this podcast, love what God's doing through it, and prayer goes a long way. So without further ado, Brother Tom, excited to hear what the Lord's placed on your heart.
Yeah, man. So you remember back when I first started coming on the podcast and helping out, and when Patrick decided he wanted to go full-time in his business and focus there. And then you asked me what I want to help out. And you and I kind of sat and talked and kind of said, well, what do we want to grow this into? What's the purpose? And we had two things that we talked about. One, we want to teach the Word of God, teach the truth. And two, we wanted to build a community of faith-based woodworkers, not just putting out a podcast for people to listen to and that be the end of it, but to actually build a community where people could connect to one another. And I tell you what, it's just so rewarding to see it coming to fruition, what we kind of envision. And so I kind of want to, before I read the passage, share what the last couple of weeks have been like. So I went down to Arizona to see my mother-in-law and pick her up with my wife. And while I was there, I drove down to Tempe and I spent a day with Cody Elkins, our good buddy. And while I was there, I posted a little story on Instagram. And one of our other listeners, Tim Bowie, was coming down to Tempe. He lives up in the Northwest Pacific, but he was coming down to Tempe to see his daughter. I believe it's his daughter that lives there. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, I'd love to meet Cody. Can you connect us up?" So I reached out to Cody, connected the two. Tim also got to go over and hang out at Cody's shop and spend the day with him and make a CNC bit. And I just think it's so cool to see how people are connecting. And another listener of ours, Mark Morgan and Everett Burge, they've been connecting and are going to start a Bible study, like a live Instagram. And so it just is so rewarding to me to go and connect with other brothers that are and sisters that are, don't want to exclude anybody, that are listening to the podcast, and to see people outside of just me and you connecting through the podcast. And one thing Cody made a statement down there, because I was just so thankful to go and hang out at his shop. It was just fascinating to make a bit, and I say make a bit, to watch his machine make the bit and him coach me through it. But just to hang out with Cody, we went and had coffee and just sat there and talked a while, and it's just it's hard to explain how rewarding it is. And then to see him and Tim also connecting like that, it just brings great joy to my heart. And because I think there is just so much value in it. And like Cody made a statement while I was there, he was like, "Dude, I was saying how thankful I was for him to open his shop and let me come in." And he said, "If you hadn't come by, I'd been in the shop all day by myself." He said, "I'm in here by myself day in, day out." And I think that's the case for most of us. We get in our shop and rarely, unless you're lucky enough to live in a town with somebody else that does woodworking with you, we're typically in our shops by ourselves. So being able to connect through Instagram or being able to connect through the Faith Talk Woods retreat that we're planning, being able to connect at other events, I just think is so amazing. But I want to read a passage. And I know we've talked about community before on the podcast, but I just have experienced it so much through Faith Talks Wood community, but then also through my brotherhood at my church. I've been a gentleman that goes to my Bible study. Him and I started mountain biking together, and neither one of us are in great shape. Neither one of us are really, I wouldn't call either one of us mountain bikers. I would call both of us trail riders. But we've been able to go out and spend hours on the trail riding. And then when we take a break, we're able to sit there and talk about life, talk about God's word, talk about what's going on in the church and our families and our kids' lives. And there's just such value in it. So I want to dive into Acts. And there's so many passages in the Bible that talk about community. But I was reading Acts, and this passage it was right after I came back from Arizona, and it just reminded me so much of my visit to Cody's shop. So we're going to dive into Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. And this short passage just has so much power. We'll go back into verse 42 first, where it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing meals and to prayer. And there is just such great power in that. When I visited Cody's shop, he and I went down to a coffee shop he likes not far from his shop, and just sat and had a cup of coffee, and sat there and talked about our families and our businesses and what God was doing in our lives, and prayed. And it was just amazing, like how valuable that time of here it talks about sharing a meal. In our case, it was just a simple cup of coffee, but taking the time it to me is our most valuable asset. It's the one thing that we don't get back. Money, tomorrow we can get up, we can make more money, but our time today, we never get back. So to share that with an individual, and for somebody to share their time with me, just means the world to me. And really, it's invaluable. The next part that really pops out is there in verse 44. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. Same thing. So Cody invited me into his shop, and here he's got this CNC machine that I want to say it's like $500,000, all this equipment to make these CNC bits. And I don't know what the cost of the piece of carbide was that we made the CNC bit out of, but he took the time, which was his most valuable asset, because he could have been at home with his kids and his wife doing something fun or making another project that made money for his family. But he took time out of his day. Then he took some carbide and coached me through running this machine, and then let me take that bit home. I don't know what monetarily that cost him, but the value to me of the experience is just, it's, far better than if he would have just walked over on the shelf, grabbed a bit and said, "Hey man, take this bit home and try it out." It was the experience, the sharing of his machinery, his time, his materials, and then just talking about life. I just can't get over how valuable it was and how much I enjoyed it. And then on down in 46, they worshiped together, met in homes, shared their meals, and most of all, this is part I really like, with great joy and generosity. See, everything that we have, everything that's sitting out in my shop, everything that's sitting in your shop, everything that's sitting in Cody's shop, it's all from God. And for us to take what we have been given, our time today, we're blessed with this day from God. And to share, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, whether it's making a bit or going out and cutting a piece of wood and making something for a friend, it is us taking what God has given us and being generous with it to others. And I tell you, when you are generous, you end up getting blessed. It is just the way it works. It's like planting seeds. You plant seeds, you're going to get something that grows back. And then lastly, that last verse there, 47, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And that is one thing, like giving God all the glory for it and praising Him in whatever we're doing and doing together. And then we get to enjoy the goodwill of one another, and just such a blessing. And so I everybody that listens to this podcast, there's so many of you. I talked to Everett Burge probably an hour before we got on to record tonight, and talked to Mark Morgan this week. I've messaged back and forth with several other people, and it's just such a blessing. And I'm so thankful for all the friends that I have made through this podcast. And I just pray that it continues to grow and that more and more relationships continue to form and more ministries continue to form outside of this because of you guys meeting one another and connecting. So what are your thoughts on this, Will?
Yeah, man, that's some awesome stuff. Love me some Acts. So as you were reading, I think you were reading from the NLT, right?
Correct. Yep.
I have my ESV sitting here.
Okay.
And so I was reading along with you. One of the things it says that I thought was interesting is verse 44. It says, and all who believed were together, flip the page, and had all things in common. And so when I was thinking about that, and you were talking about like this podcast and how it's blessing people and people are connecting through it, there's a commonality that we have, and that is, one, woodworking, but two, our faith in Jesus, and how the two marry so well because of what it is that you have to have this patience to do woodworking. You have to have a desire to do it. And same with our faith is like days aren't always easy. The James 1 says, count it all pure joy, my brothers, when trials come. We have to have patience. We have to know that God is in control. And so as you were talking about your experience with Cody, I was thinking, man, that's discipleship, right? That's a depiction of discipleship. So it's so easy to just give somebody a Bible or just tell somebody, Jesus loves you, but to actually sit with them and talk with them and explain to them why, that right there is discipleship. And what Cody did with you, he could have easily just given you a bit, but instead he showed you the process. He showed you, here's a carbide blank, and here's what we have to do to make it into a CNC bit. And that's way more valuable. And I think we all learn better that way in general. And so one of the things the podcast is doing is it's connecting people like Tim with Cody and Mark and Everett. And you're seeing these connections happen. And it's all the power of the Holy Spirit through this podcast, through a couple of nutball guys just trying to figure life out. We're just talking about what we're going through in our faith. And it's really awesome to see. And I encourage everybody out there, you're listening. We desire to build a community, as Tom said. It's important for us to have a place where the Christian maker can have a platform to share their testimony, and also a community in which we can interact and join, hopefully with this retreat coming up and things, join together, breaking of bread and, worship and all this stuff. And so really, really am blessed that a random spark of an idea a couple of years ago has turned into what it is. And it's only by the power of God through his Holy Spirit that this podcast is still going. Because if you look at metrics in podcasts, Tom, one of the things you find is most podcasts, like 99% of them, don't make it past 10 episodes.
Yep.
Because what happens is people aren't seeing numbers. People aren't listening. They get burnt out. The commitment is hard. And so they back out. And, there is work behind it. But for Tom and I, at least for myself, there's so much joy in seeing what God's doing through the podcast. And I'm not going to name names or anything, but like even through Patreon, we have somebody that gives, and they give because they see this as we've blessed them, and they're like, oh my gosh, what more can I do than to help you guys and to be part of this journey? And that's what it's about. Like we want to continue to share the gospel, share people's stories, their testimonies, and do so in a way that, it could be fun and entertaining, but also serious, because we are serious about our faith. But man, the book of Acts is so good. Just before there, this is after Peter's sermon, right? So he gives this banger sermon, and all like thousands of people come to know Christ. And he gives a sermon. They say, what shall we do now? And he says, well, believe and be baptized. Right. And then after that comes this part where they're like, and now they're devoted together and they have something in common. They're breaking bread and worshiping together. And that's what it's about. And I encourage people too, if you're listening and you don't have a church community, you need to get involved with one. I think it's crucially important to have accountability and to have a place where you feel safe that you can share whatever it is life has for you with a group of guys or gals. If you're listening, I know there are some of you out there. It's very important. And so I just encourage you guys to get involved, because what's happening here in Acts is what should be happening now with us as believers. We should be involved in a community and breaking bread together and worshiping together and, serving together. And so, man, this is good stuff, Tom. I could just chat on and on about this, but
me too, man. There's so many passages in the Bible that talk about meeting together. One of my favorite in Hebrews, it says, and this in Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says, and let us consider how to stir one another toward love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day draw near. And over in Matthew, another powerful thing about meeting together, Matthew 18:20, is for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. And so it's just so powerful when we get together and we invite the Holy Spirit in. And so I want to encourage everybody. So I spoke about Mark and Everett. Well, how they got connected is when Everett came on, shared his testimony on Instagram, Mark reached out and said, hey, man, I really enjoyed your testimony. And sent a little message on Instagram, and the two of them connected, started messaging back and forth, and now they talk all the time. So I would encourage you, like, all of us have a different story, and, my story might not connect with you like Will's story does, but if you hear somebody on the podcast share their testimony and it connects with you, shoot them a message on Instagram and just let them know how much you enjoyed it, and then, share your journey with one another. That's how we build friendships. And so I'm looking forward to seeing these connections to continue to grow. And we talked about the Faith Talks Wood Retreat, but we're going to try and do 2 different meetups next year. So I live and I'm driving distance, so I am 100% going to AWFS, which is the world's largest woodworking show in Las Vegas next year. I have to look up the dates. I want to say it's in April. But what we'd like to do is see if anybody else is going in the community. Maybe we all to get together and rent an Airbnb and be able to hang out, do some Bible study, break some bread together, and then go tour the AWFS show together next year. So if you're considering going, or maybe you weren't considering going, but you're like, hey, if there's a bunch of guys going that I could hang out with, I'd like to go, because like a ticket to the show is like $50. But most of the time, if you have a vendor you're going there to see, they have passes and you can get in for free. So you could even save the $50. So it would literally be just a plane ticket, and plane tickets into Las Vegas are one of the cheapest places to fly to. And so I'm thinking that if there was a bunch of us going and we got a house that was away from the strip, Airbnb, where we could just all hang out and grill and dive into the Word, it'd just be a fun event. And then, of course, in the fall, we are planning the first Faith Talks Wood Retreat that'll be in Pennsylvania near your place, and I am excited about that. So be sure to reach out to us.
That AWFS in 2025 is in July 22nd through 25th.
Oh, is that late? I don't know why I thought it was earlier than that, but yeah. So whatever date it is, I'm 100% going.
Yeah, I mean, just to give people perspective, so I live in northwestern Pennsylvania. I have options of Buffalo, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. They're all the same distance for me to fly out of, and a round trip ticket is like $200 to fly to Las Vegas. I mean, it's pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? And so we're definitely, I'm going to put on my calendar to go there next year. And then the retreat, we're still working on details for that. We've got a few things we need to nail down. We have the location, and we're just starting to kind of figure out the schedule and some of the things we want to do. And so if you plan on going, you could probably say October of 2025, I think, is going to be a good month for the retreat. Let us know. Send us a message on Instagram or shoot us an email at questions@faithtalkswood.com. But then if you have any ideas of like, hey, I'd love to do this or that, we're just trying to ingest some ideas so that we can plan accordingly. Because here's the reality. Tom and I went to Workbench Con. We got to meet some awesome people, got to get to know some brothers in Christ, and it was great. But we really felt like it wasn't a woodworking or a really a maker convention. It was a content creator convention. And if you weren't part of a certain clique, you kind of just tried to awkwardly hang around people. And so we don't want that. We want to have somewhere where we're all common, right? Just like it says in Acts, and that we break bread together, we dive into the word together, we worship, and we make some sawdust, right? And so let us know if you have any recommendations or any ideas for things that we could be doing. Looking forward to it, and more details come out this fall. We'll have things nailed down by then. But yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that's in July. I thought they were usually earlier than that too, but this is what this is saying. Okay. So, but Tom, have you had a chance to get out in your shop this week?
I have, man. So I think I told you my daughter left for a month-long trip, and so it doesn't mean that it's any quieter around here because my work hadn't slowed down. Typically when she's here, she's working all day. I see her in the evening, and yeah, man, I think I told you I rearranged everything, got everything set back up, and so I'm working on finishing her desk, the piano desk, and then I'm building an L-shaped desk to add to that in the corner of her room. So the piano desk will butt up to that. And the reason I did it is two separate pieces. So that way, once she grows up she's grown up. I shouldn't say that when she grows up. she's turning 21 a few days after she gets back. But one day she's going to graduate physical therapy school and probably move out and buy her own home. And my thought process was, hopefully the piano desk would stay with her forever and that eventually my grandchild would play on it, but the L shape might not fit wherever she moved to. So I made them two separate. I'm making them two separate pieces, but that, and then I've got on her wall, she is, me and her like running, or we did, and we're going to start back running half marathons and doing triathlons. Well, when you finish, you get a finisher's medal, and if you place, you get a winner's medal. But she's got this cheese ball rack that she won at an event, and so I'm making one that will match the furniture and then be much stronger and look nicer, and then also allow her it'll have a shelf above it that'll allow her to put some pictures on. So yeah, but it feels good to actually, I haven't had as much time because I was doing some work on the farm, and then I went mountain biking with a friend from my men's group. So on Saturday, dude, so YouTube videos can be very deceiving, particularly when you start watching people put together mountain bike trail videos. And so we went to this trail called Turkey Flats. The name is very misleading. It is not flat until you get up on top. We did almost 1,500 foot of climbing. And it was an absolute blast. But we had no idea because when we watched the videos, you see all these beautiful single track trails meandering through the meadows and aspen trees, and just looked like a dream ride. Well, the problem is you got to get up the hill to get to them, and it was quite the adventure. We went out there on Saturday and we had a blast, but man, you're talking about whipped. When we got done, I was exhausted, but we did that, and I thought I'd be home at noon and have some time in the afternoon. We didn't finish that ride until about 3:00, and then I came home and I was exhausted. So, and then Sunday I spent the whole day. I went to church and then came home, and me and my wife just spent the whole afternoon together. So I didn't really work in the shop yesterday, but this week I had an install today. I've got one tomorrow and I got one on Thursday. But as of right now, it looks like I'm going to have all day Wednesday and all day Friday in my shop. So I'm hoping if I get a job, I'll take the job because obviously I need the money, but I'm hoping I get 2 full days in the shop this week. So how about you?
Yeah, I've done a little bit in the shop, nothing crazy per se. It's hard to explain. So in my garage, along the one wall, there's school lockers that the guy had turned on their side, and then he put church tables on top of it and bolted the church tables to the lockers and made shelves with a tabletop. And they're old. Now, in the town that we live in, and they're not in business anymore, one of the big employers back in the day was a company that made church tables, like the wooden tables you see at churches and stuff like that. That's what they did. And so he may have worked there. I'm not sure. But so it's all like grimy and nasty and stuff. And eventually I'm going to replace it all, but it's not in the budget right now. So I wanted to make a cleaner surface that's where I make my wood finish and stuff at. So I wanted a cleaner surface that I could, work off of. And I had some scrap plywood laying around. And so I took an 8-foot section of this countertop tabletop thing, and I just screwed down this nice clean plywood to the top of it. Just give me a flat, clean surface to work on. Super easy. I haven't finished it yet. I got to go back out there at some point and get moving on that. That's about all. Oh, and I did preventative maintenance or cleaning to my laser. And so it'd been a minute since I'd done it. And it was all grimy and dirty. And so I cleaned it real good with some solvent and got that all good. I've got some engravings to do here pretty soon for wedding gifts that are coming up. So outside of that, not much in the shop. However, I think I talked about last week, my truck has cam phaser issue, went in the shop. I have a lifetime powertrain warranty, and through some back and forth, because I had to get all my oil change records to them, that is covered by the warranty. So a $5,000 job is going to cost me $100 deductible. So that's a huge blessing. But kind of one of the other things. So here's something I just want to encourage people with. The Bible says that if you ask, you're in God's will, he will give it to you, right? My wife has a craft fair this weekend. And so my in-laws are taking the kids, and I go with her to that. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it with my wife. It's just really a good time because I'm a salesperson. I'm really charismatic, and I can help her. The problem is that we have a lot of stuff we have to take, and I don't have a truck. My truck is in the shop, and I'm not getting it back for like 2 weeks. And so I had reached out to my service advisor from the dealership, and I said, hey, is there any way we can get a courtesy vehicle in this period where I don't have my truck? He's like, absolutely. He said, that was on Friday. He said, give me a call Monday and we'll get something scheduled for you. And so all I said to guys, I said, God, just give us something that's big enough that we can carry stuff to the craft fair with, because we have a crossover but that does have near enough space, and there's car seats in there, and we can't. And so I just said, Lord, just hopefully they have something big enough. And so I called him, and he said, yeah, I can get you a courtesy vehicle for the time. The only problem is all I have are trucks. I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need. And so tomorrow, I'm working from home tomorrow, and then going to take my lunch at the end of the day, and wife's going to take me over to the dealership, and we'll get that courtesy truck. And it's a huge blessing there. So looking forward to that, but kind of a fun thing. This is just life stuff. So our church does like every other week or once a month, I don't know what it is, they'll do an extracurricular activity with youth, with like the children's ministry. And so this Thursday we're going to the Cleveland Zoo. So I'm looking forward to that. I like zoos. It's like a favorite thing we like to do. And the Cleveland Zoo is pretty nice. It's huge. Like there's a lot of walking. And so doing that Thursday, took the day off, and craft fair on Saturday, which will be a very exhausting day. It's always, setting up and talking to people all day and tearing down and doing all that stuff. But yeah, I can't believe, Tom, can you believe that as we're recording this, it's July 8th already?
I know.
Where is the summer gone? It's just like flying by.
The year, it's like over halfway gone. It's, when you're a kid, you always hear your parents and grandparents making that statement, how time flies. And, when you're a kid, it feels like everything is going super slow. And then when now you get old, and I swear, man, it just seems like days that used to feel like they lasted forever now feel like they last minutes, and months feel more like they last a week. But I can't. But I will say this: it will not hurt my feelings for summer to be over with. It has been hot here, and while I do enjoy mountain biking and I enjoy getting on the river and playing, dude, I love fall. That's my favorite time of the year. Like once September 1st happens, and kind of all those triple digit days are gone, and usually the 90s for here, we get down into the 80s. And to me, that is my favorite time of the year, like September, October, November, where you can get outside and really enjoy everything. The downside of it is by then the snow, because our Colorado River is all snow melt mostly from here. So the river does go down a lot more. So it's not quite as fun to paddle in the fall. But, dude, I'm done with 100-degree days. I'm ready for them to be gone already.
I will say it's been warmer here than what I remember. I mean, we've had a lot of 90-degree plus days, which for northwestern Pennsylvania is pretty warm. And it makes it really warm when we don't have central air in our house, and we don't even have an air conditioner like in a window or anything. We did in Tennessee, and my wife and I we didn't grow up with air conditioning, and we kind of both agreed that it's an awesome luxury. It doesn't get as hot here that we can't survive. And there's this really interesting thing that we recognized in Tennessee. It's really humid, but it'd be 95 degrees outside, and we kept the house at 70 year round. And so that delta is huge. And so you go outside from being inside, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's so hot out. Well, in the house will stay at 75, 80 degrees during the day when it's, 90 degrees, 95 degrees outside, and it doesn't feel, that delta isn't that bad. And so it makes you more hardy, if you will, because you're not like, oh, I can't go outside. It's too hot. I'm too, so nice in the house. Nah, we actually go outside when sun starts going down, because there's a breeze and it's nice out there. Keeps us outside, keeps the kids busy and playing and stuff. And so, but it has been a warmer summer, and I have 2 trees that I planted last fall, and I don't like to spoil them with watering them, but I've got a lot of money invested in them, in the one specifically, the Crimson Maple. And so when we have stretches like we've had, I don't know, over a week of no rain, my hose won't reach out to them. And so I get 5-gallon buckets and I go water them because I don't want to lose the trees. So, but yeah, man, I am ready for bed. It's been, my daughter's been sick. And so we've been getting up pretty early with her and, yeah, and going outside and playing all night, and kids wear you out, man.
They do. But I'm going to tell you what, enjoy it now because you're going to blink twice and they'll be turning 21. And then it's very rare that you get to spend time with them. So
I hear you, man. Well, we appreciate everybody listening. And until next week, I'm Will from Fly Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.